Hello and welcome to another video. In today's lesson we will go over how to model the iPad you see on the screen here. I call it an Apple Droid because through the process I actually decided to have an Apple home screen, whereas the back had an Android logo. And that's just for fun. So the final scene will look something like this, and we'll go over how the poly modeling technique that I've talked about before. So to start your scene, just select everything and hit delete. Go into front view and orthographic mode by hitting 1 on the numpad, then numpad 5. Go under this panel here, and you should know how to get to here by now. If you don't, that's just the N key. Select background image, add image, open, and I have it saved over here already. Just a simple iPad. So we'll just be using just a single reference just from the front, mainly because the rest of it is fairly basic, so there isn't too much to worry about. So what we're going to do is add a mesh plane, rotate it by 90 degrees around the x-axis, and go straight into edit mode. So first thing we'll do is we'll grab these straight up on the z-axis, bring them up, and we want it to reach just where the screen is, right there. Do the same for the bottom by using the box select tool. And once again, if you don't know what tool used to select the box select tool, that's just the B key. And then we'll do this from side to side as well. And this is a fairly basic modeling practice. More complex practices would be creating something organic, such as a human head or something. Those are quite difficult to actually master and create, so it's something we will not go over for quite a while, actually. So just extrude this down. Then we'll take the sides and extrude them as well to cover the rest of the iPad, or just any tablet in general. You can use this as a basis template, actually, for creating a lot of different tablets and then just creating your own edits afterwards. So let's go into wireframe mode and go down to where this little button is. We're going to use Control R to create a loop cut and place one here, one just on the other side of the button, and then one on the top and one on the bottom. And you'll see why later on. Next, what we'll do is we'll select all edges with just holding down Alt left click, and what I'm actually going to do real quick is just increase the size of my keys here. Let's say it's 24, so I'll increase it to 35 and this to about 40, just so they're a bit easier to see. And what we'll do is we'll go into the side view, yes, Control 3, and just extrude it back on the y-axis just slightly, considering these tablets are not very thick. And then we'll start extruding inwards. So E, then just escape and scale it in. And then we will fill in this little backspace here. Just create a face there. 1, 2. Sorry, let's just get rid of that. That's actually a bad topology practice. What we'll do is we'll just grab this here. We'll actually hit G twice, and that brings us to the edge slide mode. Alright, there we go. then we'll come down here and do some more edge cuts. 2, 3, 4, okay. Then we'll do one more. What we'll actually do is we'll move some of these vertices so that they're not as close together. We can do that up top here too. This is just so it's a bit easier to work with. Whoops. There we go. Now it doesn't look as messy. And actually I think what we'll do is we'll add just a few more here, just for simplicity's sake. And one more. This way we get 100% quad type polygons. And this is where it'll actually be getting a little bit easier, as we'll only use... Actually no, we'll continue. I was going to use a mirror modifier, but this is actually a bit faster doing it this way. Less of a hassle currently. For projects like this, I would usually use a mirror modifier, but this is actually quite simple, so you can just stick to the regular type of modeling that we know. All a mirror modifier would do is take and mirror, as you would think, half of the mesh onto the other side, so that you only have to model half of the object. And we'll be getting into that later on in different videos. So just continuing to fill the back faces here. Alright, that's done. And now we can take care of that little button. And to do that, we'll just go into face mode, select mode here, select this. And that's just using Control Tab to switch the selection mode. And let's just go into side view, doesn't matter which side. And we're going to extrude back just barely. Then we'll hit I to inset the face. Escape. And then we'll hit scale. I don't think it actually inset there. Okay, yes. So after you hit I, don't hit escape. It seems to be a little glitch there. But we'll just move it in slightly. Now if we go back to the side view, extrude it out on the y-axis. And the button is now complete. So you might be thinking that this does not look anything like an actual tablet so far. But let's go into the modifiers tab and add in a subdivision surface, level 2. And if we hit smooth shading, under modifier, let's click edge split. And the edge split, you can see, is actually for most of the button area. So you can see right now it doesn't look too good until we actually activate it, and it creates a smoother type of effect. So there we have it. That is the basic modeling done. And since that was pretty quick, let's quickly go into texturing and possibly UV wrapping. So to texture this, we'll just go back into edit mode, and we're actually going to make sure our textures work first. So to do this, we're going to have two different types of textures, one for the screen and one for the rest of the mesh itself. So let's click new material and just name it so we don't get confused. Click assign, then we'll hit Control I to select everything else. Click the plus, new material, and we'll call this the shell. Click assign. Now to make sure materials actually work, let's change the shell to black, and you can see that the screen is actually a lot smaller than it should be. So to fix this, we're going to use something called a mean crease. So let's just open up our properties here and scroll all the way up to transform. Let's actually go to edge select, and let's actually brighten this up so it's a little easier to see. And what we'll do is we'll select the outer edges of just the screen, and under mean crease, turn that up to 1. Now what this does is when the subdivision surface modifier is active, what it does is it will subdivide your mesh and make it a lot smoother. But what's actually doing behind the scenes is it's creating more polygons, which if we go into wireframe mode, you can see there's a lot more polygons on the object now than what we started with. And that's due to the subdivision surface modifier needing more polygons to create a smoother surface. And what this mean crease does is it takes, and even though there's a lot of polygons active with the subdivision surface modifier, it will take and tone down the amount that the curvature affects it. So instead of having that, if we turn this all the way back down, where it affects the whole thing and just kind of shrinks it, it'll take that down and it will curve it, because there's actually the vertices now right here, here, and here also need to increase their mean crease in order to get that that part of the effect where you actually need the screen to be the actual size, if that makes sense. So this way that it's more realistic and it doesn't shrink the screen. So now that that's dealt with, we have everything set up for texturing and UV mapping. Now UV mapping we haven't gone into quite yet, so what I'll do is I'll just quickly go over it. It can be complex at times, but it can also be very easy. So what we'll do is we'll change this here into a UV image editor. And what we'll do is we'll go to edit mode, make sure we have nothing selected, and let's start. So to do an edge or a UV map, what we need is to actually mark seams on the object first. So let's select the screen area, Control E to bring up the edges menu. This is more or less every single option that you can do with an edge. And what we can do is we can go under Mark Seam, and now if we deselect, well, because the object's actually purple on those lines, you won't be able to see it, but they usually become red, and that means that the seam is marked. So now if we select the entire object, hit U, and unwrap, in this little image editor over here, we can see the unwrapped effect. So where we mark that seam, it separates the object for texturing. And right now we can see that the square here would be the screen, and then the rest of it is this is all just flat image protection, by the way. The other part here is the rest of the object. So what we need to do is actually break down the object even more in order for proper texturing. So what we need to do next is go under the button here, and we'll just turn off that little option for now, and select just that, Control E, Mark Seam, and you can actually see the red effect right now. And let's go under UVs and Live Unwrap. And what this does is instead of hitting U every time, we can just go hit E, and it will refresh the live unwrapping. So you can see here that we actually have that selected. This here is the actual button that we have. And if we select this, we can see the screen, and everything selects everything, of course. Alright, so the last thing we need to do is just go to the back, select that one edge loop, and you can see that the way we actually create our topology allowed us to select that entire edge loop, and that means that we have good topology because that's what we wanted. Control E, and let's mark the seam. Select everything, go under the UV window, and make sure your mouse is actually in that window in order for this to work. Hit E, and you now have the UV mapping that you need. So simple as that. And I think that's all we'll actually cover in this video. In the next part, well, I'll show you how to actually export this map to an external image editor such as Photoshop or GIMP, depending on what you actually use. We'll texture it, composite, and create the final result.